The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of the Sit Down with Malik Wright recap show as we recap another Bengals loss. I'm your host, Malik Wright. This is presented by the Right Way Sports Network. Got Daniel on the ones and twos and a lot of stuff to get into. I'll also be joined by Parker Blake here in a moment. To be honest with you, I'm at a loss of words. I'm genuinely at a loss of words. This wasn't a situation in which you were just completely outmatched. This wasn't a situation in which, you didn't belong. This was a situation where you completely choked the game away. And a lot of miscues. And, you look at it, Joe Burrow played his ass off today outside of that one mistake that he made where he tried to force the ball there to Marlon Humphrey, which also was a little bit questionable contact happening beforehand. But there's a lot of thoughts on this game. There's a lot of thoughts on how that whole situation just took place. But I want to make sure I get Parker Blake in here. Maybe he can have a more of a, positive outlook. So without further ado, Parker Blake. What's going on, Parker? How we doing, man?
Oh, just so wonderful, Malik. How are you this fine afternoon, evening?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm at a little bit of a loss of words. There are many different ways to lose a game, and the Bengals found another way to do that. Especially when they had the opportunity to, put the game away, put the game on ice. Especially when they had the opportunity to make it work for them. They weren't able to capitalize, and this is the performance, unfortunately, that they have. Parker, I want to see what your thoughts are before I really dive a little bit more deep into some things and go from there.
Yeah, capitalizing off of turnovers is huge. They still struggle to do that. I think game management still struggles. You can't. Playing for the 50-yard field goal at the end of the game, there's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
That's kind of my early takeaways. The right tackle situation was a little stressful there. It'll be interesting to see what Mims looks like come Monday, Tuesday. Overall, yeah, it's great to see Joe Burrow start feeding Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. It's great to see the three of them really seem to hit their stride. Both of those guys are just huge pieces of this offense. And as fun as it's been, seeing the ball get spread around to some of these other targets like the tight ends or Yoshi or whoever you want to choose, Chase Brown out of the backfield. It was good to see, Uno and Cinco out there, working out. So the offense still looks good. I don't think you can pin that one on the offense. They look good so far this season, in my opinion, outside of week one. I like what they were able to do today. The run game seemed to struggle a little bit today, so I'm excited to kind of break that down as the week goes on. But outside of that, I was pretty happy with the offensive performances. Defense feels like they just can't get on the same page. Defensive line has a good play, then the back end falls apart and vice versa. So people really hoping that can gel at some point as the season goes on. But 1-4, man. 1-4.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of positive takeaways, and we discussed this beforehand, right? This game really was, hey, you got to see what type of team you put out, and they put out a damn good performance. The storylines should have been, right, Joe Burrow for MVP, should have been the Bengals are back, Jamar Chase almost 200-plus receiving yards. They were humming, man. They were humming in all cylinders, and I think, obviously, we can get into this. The big discussion is going to be, are we pinning this all on the final drive, when they got the turnover and Zach Taylor chose to run the ball 3 straight times? Or are we going to look at also the final 8 minutes of the game when you didn't score a single point, right? You were up by 10 points after the big Jamar Chase touchdown, and then you go throw an interception, then you go punt, and then the missed field goal. I think there's a lot to discuss. I think that there is a lot of game management issues to discuss. And quite frankly, this game was handed to you on a silver platter at the end of the game, right? John Harbaugh and the Ravens looking at in the overtime, they were rolling, and Lamar Jackson, big turnover. So we're not going to just pin it all on Joe Burrow's interception, right? Joe Burrow did throw the interception. That's kind of when the game did turn, but you still had your chances. So my frustration, I think, really comes down to the last minutes. And this isn't the first time we've seen this before, right? We've seen this before. And it's like they get lethargic. It's like it's just frustrating to see you take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, especially at the end of the game. So take me through Parker real quick. What were your thoughts? Right, I mean, Jamar Chase 70-yard screen touchdown. What was your thoughts at that point? And then just walk me through your thought process, and then especially that last drive. Do you feel like they should have at least tried to throw the ball and not run it 3 straight times?
I mean, my thought immediately at that point was that Eric All is a hell of a blocker in space, and I'm so glad he is on this football team. Yeah. No, I think, it was a close game, the whole game. It was a battle back and forth. The Bengals stayed ahead for a lot of it, but it was a battle. And so I think you got to come out there and you got to work. Again, I talk every week, it feels like, about time of possession. I think they kept it really close. I actually thought they did a decent job of even handling the run game for most of the game, defensively for the Bengals at least. But I think you got to come out there and you have to try and get a first down. You can't have a quick 3 and out that led to that punt. I don't love Joe Burrow forcing that ball to Jamar Chase. However, I feel like, Jamar probably has to be more physical on that inside route. He knows it's coming to him. But yeah, I think you can't just let yourself coast, right? I feel like that's what we've seen this Zach Taylor-led Bengals team do for how long now, where they get up and it gets late in the game and they just kind of want to sit on it. They want to, play the field position game. They don't even really try to milk clock, to be quite honest with you. They're not going for first downs. They're just trying to burn a minute or two away in 3 plays and then punt the ball, play the field position game. I know a lot of people are going to talk about Rico, fumbling the snap on the kick. However, I understand that you might miss that kick no matter what if you drop the snap. Yeah. However, I still just you got to at least play for field position. You can't just run 3 interior runs and sit on the game when you're at the 40-yard line, especially in overtime when next score wins. I mean, try and break something off. I mean, the Ravens didn't take shots, but I mean, they let Derrick Henry hit the perimeter. They let him break some tackles and make a play. I mean, we had Jamar Chase break a 70-yard screen off. Why not pop one of those off in overtime? Why not take a couple short yardage shots in the passing game? Jamar Chase had been cooking. T. Higgins had been cooking. You haven't really utilized your tight ends. Maybe you can leak one of them out. Maybe you get Chase Brown on a screen when they're overloading for the run. There's a lot of other options you could have gone to outside of just sitting on it at the 40 and then hoping that you can make this long field goal. I know Money Mac, and he's hit these before, but you got to give your guys a better chance. Put your guys in position to succeed. And that's my biggest issue right now, where you're not coaching like you're trying to win that game. You're just coaching like you're trying to get out of it with a win. And that's where, you see a lot of teams around the league. There's like 2 types of teams, right? You have teams that snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat, and you got teams that snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. And it feels like over the last 2-3 years that the Bengals have been in the latter, and that's something hard to swallow. When you're getting up on teams, you get into, whether it's the second half and you have a big lead. We've seen them choke games away like that. We saw them do that against Carolina when they got in the second half of that game and they just sat on it. They're like, oh, we'll just run the clock out. We'll get away. We don't need any more points. I mean, but then again, on the other side of it, it's hard to score 38 points and lose. Yes. It's hard to give up 41 points in the league and win. So you have questions on that side. I know when you lose that coin toss, you don't have the playoff overtime rules in effect in the regular season, which I still think is super annoying and weird. But the Bengals got their shot, so you can't even complain about that right now. But it's hard when you lose that coin toss and you just your stomach kind of sinks and you're like, oh, what's this defense going to do? And you honestly had to rely on a mistake. You had to rely on a turnover, and the fact that you got that botched snap and the fumble and it got kicked around, you were able to fall on it. I mean, that was lucky enough in itself. Don't hope for luck again with a 50-yard field goal. Yes. So,
no, I'm with you, and I think that's the frustrating part about this, man. Is it was there, and a slight change and a slight bounce here and there makes the difference of the takeaway of Joe Burrow's back, MVP Burrow, and you're 1-4. And I think we are going to have the conversation about this regime, right? You go look at the Kansas City Chiefs game, and obviously Joe Burrow had that crucial fumble, but that was your game. And you went out there and you lost it. And right here at home against the Baltimore Ravens, when you were up by 10 and then you crumbled that away. And then in overtime, you had your chance. And I think you brought up a great point. This team has been so reliant on the timely turnovers, and you fucking got one. And that's the part that is going to be the hardest pill to swallow. And I think that's the part that we've got a lot of people in this chat. We appreciate you guys, 255 people. Make sure you guys like this video. That's the part that everybody's going to talk about is you had the chance. And I want to discuss more besides that. But at the end of the day, you were relying on Evan McPherson to make another massive kick versus put him in the best position to succeed. You were playing it safe. And you knew damn well by running those 3 times, they were putting 8 men in the box, 9 men in the box. You knew you weren't going to get a first down with those runs. Were you scared because Joe Burrow threw an interception before that? Were you playing it safe because you have the confidence that, hey, I got a kicker that can make it from 60? That's the frustrating part. You didn't put yourself in the best position to succeed. And
it's a classic thing of relying on what has, helped you before in the past. A classic thing of what has worked in the past. And, hindsight is always 20/20. If Ryan Rico gets that ball down, does Evan McPherson make that kick? Right? We don't know that necessarily. You trust that the kicker that you spent, top dollar for and extended him recently, you trust that he would make that kick, obviously, which is why I'll never be down on the team for giving McPherson a shot there. But what I will say is played extremely conservative down there, obviously in a point where your quarterback was absolutely rolling during the day. He was absolutely rolling. He had a game, and he was on point. His receivers were on point, and this offense was clicking, and you got a gift handed right to you. You got a gift handed right to you, and that gift was the Ravens fumbling in your own red zone during overtime. And you recovered it, and you had the opportunity to ice the game. Well, you had the opportunity to ice the game before the interception as well. And some of the play calling there was interesting. I felt like they should have probably ran the ball a little bit more and been more. I understand being attacking, but I felt like that ball was a little forced there. But here's one thing I want to speak to: the defense was atrocious. And as much as I think Lou is a good defensive coordinator personally, and I just think that he lacks talent to really show that off, the numbers are the numbers. The optics are the optics. And no matter what I say, no matter what we sit up here and say, nothing's going to change that. The optics say that the Bengals have a bad defense. The optics say the Bengals are a bad football team right now. And the optics say that Bengals fans alike and people are calling for Lou Anarumo's job. That's it. Men lie, women lie, and numbers don't. I often say that, and I have to live by that, no matter what it is. The numbers say the Bengals defense, run defense, is putrid. The numbers say the Bengals defense can't stop a nosebleed. And the numbers say the Bengals are what they are. 1-4 is not a fluke. It isn't. As much as we say it is, it isn't.
Yeah.
The defense is bad. The play calling from a consistency standpoint is not up to par. That results in being 1-4. That results in being 1-4. And that's how you get the result of being 1-4. And so guess what? The Bengals are 1-4. And I love what Cam Loves Jesus says. He says, firing Lou won't help the defense. They need better players. I agree. But again, when people look back at it, it's like when a fighter loses a fight. I often say, nobody's going to look back and say, hey, the referee stopped the fight prematurely. They're just going to look back and say the fighter lost the fight. No one's going to go do a deep dive into the Bengals defense to say, who did he have playing defense? They're going to go back and say the Bengals had a terrible run defense. The Bengals defense couldn't get a stop. We need to fire him. And that's what the optics are. No matter how much I disagree with it, I won't sit up here and try to sell you a bridge. It's bad right now. You really hope that this team was going to be able to get the most out of this roster. It sucks to see Joe Burrow put together a game like that, and in the most critical moment of the game, have the ball taken out of his hands. it sucks that, there were so many opportunities for the Bengals to put this one away, and the Bengals continued to answer the call offensively. The defense got stops today, guys. Defense took the ball away. I mean, albeit they didn't really take the ball away. It was just fumbled away, but they took the ball away. The defense was, in my opinion, I saw some improvements, especially from the defensive line. I saw some different mixes of coverages. It feels like Lou took a page out of Brian Flores' book. I saw them do some interesting stuff out there today. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Right, it's really twofold. The defense showed some bright spots. I loved how he used the 8 men on the line of scrimmage. It was very similar, like we were discussing with the Commanders game. You have to do it, and there was times where the Ravens' offense looked putrid. Lamar Jackson looked frustrated on the sideline, and I think this was definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to mixing up coverages. And it really just comes down to execution, right? You got to tackle better. And all around this defense, whether it was Cam Taylor-Britt getting cooked by Zay Flowers, whether it was the linebackers being too slow against the tight ends, whether it was Von Bell losing his coverage and getting cooked by a tight end, the third string tight end, all around, just a mistake here and a mistake there. It wasted away one of the best offensive performances we've seen from this Bengals team. And quite possibly, this was one of the best back and forth games we've seen in recent memory. I mean, this is probably the best game of the season so far. And it just sucks that the takeaway is going to be 1-4 and what's next. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks that, the defense couldn't get a critical stop when they needed to. And the fact that Lamar Jackson, the Rams were able to go right back down the field and answer the call after Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase touchdown. It was moments like that. You felt like the game was sort of in hand. You were up by 10. How many times? It was putrid. It was putrid. It's no way around it. And, I see Bengals fans all on social media are pissed, are done. And a lot of people are not too happy. It's, 1-4 is inexcusable. It's inexcusable. Parker, do you see any bright spot for Bengals fans to kind of hang their hat on, if any, at this point? I mean, I guess you can hang your hat on the offensive score 30 plus points in 3 straight games, but that's not really nothing to really hang your hat on at this point when you're 1-4. I feel like it feels like you have to score 30 plus in order to win the game because your defense is so bad. And I get it. They were injured. Mike Hilton, Dax Hill went out. Hopefully a Dax Hill injury, he could bounce back, but I'm not so sure after watching the film and seeing how quickly he was ruled out. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Parker?
Yeah, no, I mean, like we've talked about, I mean, this offense looks good. And this is the offense that we've been waiting for since they drafted Joe Burrow. Like, this is what we've waited for. And it feels like, they can only keep one side of the team up at a time. Like, the offense is good, the defense has to be bad. Like, we were able to, cling to good defense for so long with an offense that was struggling and just trying to get by with whatever they were able to do. Mm-hmm. And now it feels like they flipped the script, and the defense just isn't cutting it. And like you guys talked about, I mean, you can say what you want about the talent that they have on the defensive side of the ball, but they've invested there. I mean, they've paid guys, they've drafted guys. I mean, they've invested a lot of capital into that side of the ball, and it's just not working out. And that's where you have to look at. I mean, you didn't have a ton of injuries to lean on this week. I mean, you didn't have a ton of guys missing that you expected to be there and to contribute. This was like, I mean, especially up front. I mean, we've talked about the whole season so far not having defensive linemen that we expected to contribute. I know Rankins is still out, but I mean, you have the defense you expect to have out there minus Dax Hill and Sheldon Rankins for the most part. They were in rotating guys in. I mean, we saw John Meta in there. We saw Jordan Battle get some run. We saw Anthony get some run. I mean, this is just the defense, and it is what it is. And that's where you have to look at, okay, if it's a talent issue, you know where to look out for that. And if it's a, scheme issue, you know where to look out for that. But if you're going to blame personnel, there's got to be someone accountable to that too. And that's where I think the bright spot is. I mean, it's only the first divisional game, but I mean, your only win right now is outside of the conference. Your own one in the division. They've always struggled to win these AFC games. That's what matters at the end of the day. I mean, the Bengals every year look like one of the best teams in the NFC, but unfortunately they don't play in the NFC. So they have a terrible AFC schedule every year. You can't drop home divisional games. That's why that's such a tough loss, in my opinion. It would have been different, especially if this was in Baltimore, but it's at home, and you have to try and split those. And we all know how tough it is to play in Baltimore. And so that's where, looking ahead, it's really tough because, the offense looks great, but it doesn't matter if they could have scored 40 points and still lost this game.
Yep.
So, if you can't lean on your strong offense and you have to root for your bad defense, I don't know what the bright spots are because I don't know no one's coming to save you now.
I don't really want to crash out about too much, but what a fucking asinine comment by Zach Taylor that was made.
What did he say?
Jeez,
I don't even
people can write us off if they want to. I'm not dumb enough to do that. You're 1-4, bro.
Yeah.
You're 1-4. You've been outcoached in almost every single game.
Yep.
What are you talking about? Relying on the old, same tired rhetoric of what you've done in the past is why you're probably in this situation. Slow starts, having your team unprepared. What are you talking about? People writing you off. You are what your record says you are. And certainly 4 losses don't mathematically disqualify you from playoff contention. It's a morale hit to the team. What type of holier than thou fucking response is that? People can try to write us off if you want to. I'm not dumb enough. What are you talking about? You ask people to fill these stadiums, fill that stadium every single Sunday when you guys play, dress up in orange, do all this shit, and you put a poor product on the field and you talk about people can write us off if you want to. You have one victory, and it's against the Panthers, who you almost gave it away to.
Yep.
You are what your record says you are. I'm sorry. I appreciate coaches, and I apologize for any children or teenagers that are watching the show. In my language, I apologize. I get a little passionate. I'm from New Jersey. I'm sorry. But you could try to frame this whatever which way that you want to, but coming out and saying you could write us off if you want to, I'm not dumb enough. You're calling this fan base dumb? Is that what you're doing? You're calling pundits and people that literally watch hours and hours of film dumb? I'm sorry. I don't think it's dumb to say a 1-4 team is not a serious contender right now. I don't think that's dumb to say. And I think that's extremely lacking self-awareness and understanding where your team currently is, in my honest opinion. To say that in any way, shape, or form, you take that on the chin and you say, we are what our record says we are. All we can do is we can climb ourselves out one game at a time. That's the response you want to say. You want to hear from your coach. You know what? And I agree with you, Akila the Great. You are dumb enough to a degree. You took the ball out of your superstar, highest paid quarterback in the league, or was the highest paid quarterback in the league's hands in the most pivotal moment of the game. Yeah, so numbers would say you're dumb. Somebody watching the film would say you're dumb. This is a guy, Joe Burrow, that was cooking this team all game long on the defensive side of the ball, and you took the ball out of his hands. I'm tired of these coaches who haven't done fucking shit in the NFL being so snooty with the media and almost, how dare you say this, or how dare you disagree with me? How dare you write this team off? Zach Taylor, people don't take this team serious because people don't take you serious, respectfully. Everybody around the league knows this Bengals football team is extremely talented, and they probably just are in a situation in which they have a coach that gets outcoached week after week after week. So unfortunately, great quarterback can overcome bad coaching. I believe that. But in pivotal games right there, when you take on a team that is as good as Baltimore Ravens, you'd hope that the coach would have his shit together. And you know what's crazy? I almost said Zach Taylor coached a great game.
Yeah.
He coached a great game. But you know what the difference is in coaching? It's not about coaching a great game. It's about situational coaching. Situational coaching, we talked about this for a while, Daniel. Situational coaching is why coaches either have jobs or they don't have jobs. Bill Belichick was one of the best at situational coaching. Situational coaching means how you handle critical situations in the game-turning moments in the game, how you coach that, how you deal with pressure. Zach Taylor, you coached like a coward, okay? Your team played not to lose, but they didn't play to win. And in the most pivotal moment. And it's crazy because on the play where Joe Burrow threw the interception to Marlon Humphrey, the game was in hand. They were up 10.
Yep.
They were playing to win the game. So why in overtime after your, defense comes up with a critical fumble, right? Why do you instantly go and become a hermit and you go into a shell? Now, who's to say you get close to field goal range and Ryan Rico doesn't bobble the snap, it doesn't happen on a 20-yard field goal? We don't know, but at least give your team a fighting chance. My issue right here isn't the fact that you lost. Shit happens sometimes, right? Shit happens sometimes. Ryan Rico that missed the bobble, that happens sometimes. I have a problem with the attitude. I have a problem with the attitude and the mentality of, if you write it, you could write us off if you want to, but I'm not dumb. That's just an interesting statement to me. You're a meme at this point.
Yeah.
You're not real at this point. You're not real. You can't be taken serious. This team can't be taken serious under your tutelage because clearly, you have not looked yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? We suck right now. We can be better. Let's work to get better. You'd rather say, hey, you know what? We know who we have in this building. We know who we have at quarterback, and we're going to keep believing in our guys. We're not going to believe what our record says we are, and we're going to keep fighting and keep climbing and keep pushing. Guess what? Accountability is such a huge trait to have as a coach. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror is such a huge ability to have as coach. Self-scouting is such a huge ability to have as coach. And I'm believing that at this point, Zach Taylor doesn't have that because, well, it took you a long time to finally, be able to call a good game plan, a solid game plan this year. And, we constantly have talked about maybe you turning over the reins of play calling duty for obvious reasons. But for me, it's just, you make that statement of write us off if you will. I'm not dumb enough to do so. That's just very interesting. Parker, what are your thoughts on those comments by Zach?
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely interesting. And I think these are the situations that help you lose a locker room, is what it is.
Yes.
I mean, the overtime stuff where again, it's not playing to win. You have 53 guys on the roster that you assume are playing to win. They're out there to win football games. I mean, you could talk about guys around the league. You talk about how they just want to get paid. They don't care about winning anymore. But I mean, we talked about, managing failure in relation to how the Jaguar season's going, right? With Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson's, people are talking about him losing his job this week. However, when you look over at Zach Taylor, I mean, what's he done to help the morale in this locker room? What's he done to instill confidence in his team that he is the guy? Because everyone around the country, everyone around the world knows that the Bengals have a lot of talent in the locker room. They have a lot of talent on the field. They have players out there that can make plays, that can win games. However, time and time again, you get in these situations where you, as the head coach, are putting your team not in situations to succeed, but situations to hope for success. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You can't get out there and hope you're going to win a game. You can't get out there and hope you're going to make a 50-yard field goal and hope you're going to get a lucky turnover. You have to get out there and you have to trust your guys to do their jobs and succeed in the way that they know how to succeed. And that's why it's been crazy, because there's been multiple times over his tenure that they've taken the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands in clutch situations. And you can talk about the interception all you want to, or the fumble against KC, but at the end of the day, Joe Burrow's won you more games than he's lost you. Zach Taylor's lost you more games than he's won you. And that's where it comes down to, which guy do you want to trust? Do you want to trust the conservative play caller or the quarterback that wants to get out there and win a Super Bowl before his time is up, whenever that comes? The guy that's out there trying to get his receivers paid because the organization's being stiff on that end. Like the guy that's out there that wants to carry this team and talked about his own leadership, style changing and how he has to be perfect. And he knows that he wasn't perfect today, but he was damn close for a majority of the game. Yeah. He had a great game. He had a near perfect game. There was missed throws, there was missed reads, there was an interception. But at the end of the day, it's the NFL. You can only be so perfect, and you have to get help from somewhere. And if it's not going to be your defense, it's not going to be your head coach and play caller. Where's it going to come from? And again, that's where I say you can never know when a coach loses a locker room unless someone speaks out. But I mean, you're not on a good track right now to keep it. You're not on a good track to instill that confidence in your locker room. And that's where, you can say all you want as a head coach that you shouldn't write the team off. And over again, we've heard them say, we like the guys we have. We trust the guys we have. But at the end of the day, are you showing that you trust the guys you have?
Right.
Are you showing that you have faith in your
Lip
roster?
service.
You're not. Yeah. You're just telling us what you want us to believe, like we're idiots. And that's why it's, I'm not dumb enough to do so is the interesting closing line there.
Well, you want to hear another quote he said?
Let's hear this.
All right. A media person said in the beginning of the season, he had expectations that this being a championship caliber team at 1-4. Where do you go from here? Zach Taylor, I still believe we're a championship level team. It gets better. Joe Burrow, in a separate press conference after the game, like he does, we are not a championship level team right now. One guy deals in reality. The other guy thinks this is a fucking Disney Channel movie. This guy believes this is a Disney movie where he's going to click his heels 2 times and all of a sudden the Bengals are just going to put it all together. I like the fact that that Joe Burrow could be real, but think about the guy that's actually leading the team and how delusional he is right now. Let's talk about that. We always talk about these two being, are they jointed? And people say, Zach and Joe Burrow are obviously jointed at the hip and they are on the same page because of whatever. Well, it doesn't seem like that to me. One guy deals in reality. The other guy deals in Disney World. Like, to me, I think the conversations could be more polar opposite. It's almost like when Zach Taylor tried to debunk that him and Joe Burrow met after the game, after the loss. Yeah. And then Joe Burrow says, well, we did meet. It's like, who's going to be real here? Who's going to show a little fire? We don't want the corporatized answers, the coach speak. You are what you are. You're not a championship level team right now.
You're 1-4.
You're 1-4. Where's the honesty? You asked for the fan base to come out in droves and support and scream and all this kind of stuff like that. And you can't even be honest about where you guys genuinely are right now. Something's wrong there. Something's wrong there. I don't know. They got the Giants this upcoming week, Park. And I was really looking forward to going home for that game. And I still am going home for that game. Going to obviously be in our suite and all that concept. But I got to be honest with you, man. This is bad. This is bad, man. This is not what you thought the record would be going into this is not what you thought the record might be going into the New York game. This is bad. And I wish I could come up on this show, guys, and I wish I could be more positive. I wish I could come on the show, I could be more positive, and we could talk about all the wonderful things that happened today. I wish we could talk about the insane catch Mike Gesicki had on the sideline. I wish we could talk about Jamar Chase still being him and betting on himself. I don't know. But we can't talk about those. What we have to talk about and what we have to discuss is a 1-4 Bengals team. You have to talk about a 1-4 Bengals team that had everything in front of them, had games on the horizon that people were excited for to start the season. The games quite honestly, they should have won. Yeah. And because whether they overlooked opponents or whatever the case may be, they fell flat on their face. Now you look at it, you can't call the Patriots' loss a fluke. You can't call the Commanders' loss a fluke. You can't call the Chiefs' loss even. I mean, there's so many things you could look at. You could just say that this team is good, but just not good enough. I think that's what it boils down to. Park, do you see any way they can climb out of this hole, man?
Yeah, I mean, you can win a bunch of games. That's how you do it.
Parker, I just said no coach speak, and Parker comes out and gives me coach speak. I love it.
No, it's crazy, man. That's the thing, right? And you said it best yourself. I mean, one of the key attributes to being a good quality coach over the long haul is self-scouting and self-accountability, and that's where you like to see stuff like that from your franchise quarterback, but your coach, not being able to have that, tough realization of like, oh yeah, we're not playing like a championship caliber team. Again, you can still coach speak your way around to that. You don't have to say, yeah, no, our team sucks. But at the same time, like you have to acknowledge where you're at. And that's where I worry about like the long term. Like if Zach Taylor is going to live in this fantasy land where he's like, oh yeah, no, our guys are going to bring it together and they're going to help, carry me to another Super Bowl and help me reinstate my career here and be a long-term guy here. But no, it's at some point you have to take over as a coach and say, hey, we're not performing as we should be. It could be a championship caliber roster if you think that's what it is. But right now you're not performing as a championship caliber team. And that's the realization he needs to have before he loses the locker room. And I think carrying this thing forward, I think all eyes are going to turn to Joe Burrow. But then again, Joe Burrow's out there and he's playing his ass off. So where do you go from there? I mean, you look at the captains that are in this room, the veterans that are in this room, the youth that's stepped up and been performing at a high level that's in this room. Like, where do the eyes go next? Because it's like we look at Joe Burrow and he's being honest. He's saying we're not playing like we need to be. But guess what? Joe Burrow only plays one side of the ball and he's only one guy out of 22 starters. So I don't know what it looks like going down the road. And that's where I went through the same thing with my own team so far this season. We've had a little bit of an up and down season. But at some point you got to get there. And it's like, preseason, we looked at some of these games like New England, like Washington, like Carolina, like New York as easier games on the schedule and games you didn't have to worry about. Maybe we're talking about some of them as trap games, but now you're a 1-4 team. So the mentality you have to carry with you going forward is there is no such thing as an easy game. We have to go into every game like it's a playoff game because at this point, again, at 1-4, every game is a playoff game. And I know it's tough to say you have any must-win games in October, but I thought some people said it best when they talked about this game being, hey, this is going to be, are the Bengals the truth or are the Bengals really going to have a tough run this season? I think that was literally that ending of that game and kind of the whole fourth quarter and overtime was the epitome of, yeah, this is what people were worried the Bengals would look like coming out this year. And as a head coach, you have to address that. You can't expect your players to come out there and defend you when you're, again, living in this fantasy land. So looking forward, you have to come together. You have to find that purpose. And you have to, again, you can't lose that locker room because once you lose the locker room, it all falls apart. And that's where you end up with these terrible seasons that end you with top 5 picks in the draft in April. You don't want to be picking top 5 in April. You want to be finishing top 5 in February.
Yeah.
And the part that I think is, for lack of a better term, is bullshit is, Malik, I thought you brought up the great point. The quote, that quote just infuriates me because, like Parker, and you discussed how your football team, right? Okay, you guys are going through a rocky point. How you can look at, obviously we're not in the locker room, but think about it when the quarterback, the star player, your wide receiver, your star receiver, the beginning of the season, it was, okay, shit, we're not on the same page. What does the locker room think after they see that dude go off for 198 and 2 tutties? What does the locker room think when they look at the stat sheet? Holy shit, our quarterback had 5 touchdowns, 350. What does the locker room think? And I think if everybody was watching, put yourself in the shoes of a player, right? You're in the player, and obviously you are going to look at yourself. But if you can say, holy crap, well, our guys, we put up 38 points. The blame is going to have to go somewhere. And that's my concern for this team is where does the blame go? And it's going to be, does Zach Taylor lose the locker room? So when you're looking forward, you got to look seriously just one game at a time. I don't think that this season is completely over. But you have to make something magical happen. This has to be one of the craziest things even to make the playoffs because right now you're losing in your division. And there was a great stat somebody brought up. Zach Taylor is 10-22 in the AFC North. Zach Taylor has gotten dog walked by John Harbaugh. He's gotten dog walked by Kevin Stefanski. He's gotten dog walked by Mike Tomlin. And that's the issue. He's not playing AFC North football. He's not coaching AFC North football. And that's the issue with this team.
Zach Taylor isn't coaching NFL football from a city. Like we talk about situational coaching, situational game management, critical moments, stuff like that. And, I was really going to sit up here and really give him credit for coaching a really, really good game today. But, critical decision making down the stretch is what put them in the spot. We've got over 450 people watching live right now. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate y'all. We'll also be live tomorrow to talk more about the Bengals' loss to the Ravens, as well as NFL action across the board and so much more. I guess what I can leave y'all with before we head out of here is, the offense is clicking, I guess. But what is it to gain the world but to lose your soul, or find your offense but lose your winning ways? And that's sort of what's going on with the Bengals here. This isn't a playoff caliber team. This isn't a team that I would even mention next to the playoffs right now. But I will tell you right now, this is bad. And I guess the question I have for you, gentlemen, before we head out of here is there any world in which you, and I guess I'm the NFL insider here, obviously, I know, but I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts on it. Do you guys think that the Bengals should move on from Zach Taylor if the Bengals miss the playoffs? Parker.
I mean, if they miss the playoffs, again, he kept his job because he stumbled into an accidental Super Bowl, and he hasn't really done anything since. So, I mean, again, you sat down for that extension. It should have been a conversation about the win-loss record and the success that had been lacking. I think he should lose his job if they don't make the playoffs because this roster is too talented to be doing that. I think if he doesn't, someone else should. I think there needs to be sometimes a shakeup's good, like Steelers fans talked about with Mike Tomlin last year.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just need to get the guy. Yeah, he's great at having winning seasons, but what about the other success? And we're not even we're looking right now down the barrel of a long season right now. And I think if you have that dramatic of a fall off, someone's got to be held accountable, whether or not as an organization you feel like it's on your head coach. That's great. But again, you have to bring in a guy, bringing some new life into this team if that's the way it goes. And so I'm definitely on that side of it.
And the way I see this is it really is one of two ways. First off, at this point, everybody's saying fire Zach Taylor now. I don't think so. I think that right now, what good does that do, right? Who do you put in as interim head coach? You put in Dan Pitcher. Like, well, where do you go from there? If they lose to the Giants, I think that's a different story. If you go 1-5, that's it. We're having a totally different conversation. I think this goes one of two ways. What they should do. The only way a team shouldn't even discuss firing a head coach is if your team is firing on all cylinders at the end of the season. If you have a Bill Belichick, a John Harbaugh, a guy who has proven time and time again to be a winner. Respectfully, the only thing that Zach Taylor has proven right now, he's built a good culture. But if you ask yourself this question, what do you lose from replacing a guy like Zach Taylor this offseason? If I'm being honest, you still got Joe Burrow. They re-signed Jamar Chase. I'm missing something because I really don't think that if you replace a guy like Zach Taylor this offseason, if they lose and don't make the playoffs, I really struggle to see how this team takes a step backwards next year. And that's my silver lining when it comes to the head coach. So, Malik, to answer your question, if they miss the playoffs, I am 1,000% having that discussion, and 1,000% he should be on the hot seat. The different question, will they? I think it depends on how they finish the season. Because I could see a world where if they, get 9 wins, if they get 10 wins, but somehow still miss out on the wild card, I could see a world where the Bengals say, hey, we're going to keep Zach Taylor around. But to be honest, I don't really see a downside if you miss the playoffs of bringing in a guy who has a proven track record. And we'll have to look at candidates and everything, but that's where my mind goes. I don't think you lose a lot by losing Zach Taylor if you don't make the playoffs this year.
One thing I'll say before I let Parker go is don't settle for complacency. Don't be afraid for change. Don't be afraid to start over. And you won't really be starting over because you kind of have the foundation of the team. I don't like calling for guys' jobs, and I won't sit up here and do that still. But what I will say is there is life after him if you were to move on. And if you're serious about winning a championship now, you have to really look in depth at this team and listen to your fan base. Watch the morale of the team the rest of the way. That's something I'd be paying attention to. If I was an ownership group, I'd be paying attention to how the organization just moves overall, how the players in the building respond. Are people still receptive to Zach Taylor? Does the fan base still view him as the guy? Or are they coming out or are they staying home? These are all factors that play a role. And while Zach Taylor is definitely an upgrade from Marvin Lewis, I would say, how much of an upgrade? how much of a grade? Are you finding yourself in the same situation? And are you basing your decisions of keeping him potentially off of 1 year that hasn't been replicated, to be completely honest with you? Those are questions that need to be answered. And I just hope that the Bengals organization is really grown from this. And I really hope that they're really looking at themselves internally and trying to figure out what the next move is for this team if this team was to not make the playoffs. Because right now it doesn't look like they're doing so. Do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live, when we upload content. I greatly appreciate y'all for tuning in to our show for the weekly recap show. Parker, we appreciate you for joining us, my man.
It was a pleasure.
I wish it was under better circumstances. You'll be back live for the sit down morning show with Malik Wright, presented by TWSN, obviously on Tuesday morning, and we'll be able to talk more things through a little bit more because I know that show will be dedicated to Bengals. But yeah, this is disappointing. No matter which way we shape it, this is very, very disappointing, and I feel for Houday Nation, and I want better for them. But onward and upward, I guess. But we appreciate you guys. We hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your NFL Sunday, and as always, Houday.
So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Shout out Young Switch.